I'm super excited to be here. This is so far my absolute favorite person to talk to. We have Gordon White, chaos magician and inspiration to me and countless others. Gordon, thanks for coming on and talking about a tarot card with us. I totally
Didn't
appreciate
have
it.
to, Matt, you didn't have to bend my arm. I love talking about cards.
Awesome, awesome. So, Gordon, the card that I wanted to talk to you about, we're doing them maybe in a random order with a leaning towards wands to kind of get started, and we wound up with the Nine of Wands, and I have it in my deck here with Perseverance, and there's the kid climbing up this rugged beech tree. But I'd just be curious, in your mind, what does that card say to you from a fixed meaning and not so fixed meaning standpoint?
Yeah, well, it's one of the ones I like that kind of converges. So the fixed meaning stuff, as you know, sort of emerged out of the 19th century and kind of firmed up with the Golden Dawn and so on. And you spoke to it there as perseverance. But from a earlier and kind of combination of number theory and playing cards, you have a similar thing. In the number theory that informs European fortune telling, the nine is almost the actual completion card. The nine is when whatever is in play with that suit is at maximum, because the 10 is like it's done. And in number theory, it's also a reset to the next decade, right? So in many respects, each suit finishes with the nine, not entirely, but in many respects. So in the case of batons, you call them wands, but I got actually a few of my own to do that, but I use the Marseille more. And I think that initial meaning comes through in batons because it is sort of being beaten over the head. And the convergence of the meanings between fixed meaning and fortune telling is life will still be shit for a little while, but you will get through it. So when it appears, it's not a pleasant card in the short term to have show up in a reading, because it does mean, yes, the reason you've come to the fortune teller is still in play and it sucks and it's going to suck for a little bit longer. The good news is somewhere in you are the reserves to see it to the end. So it's the maximal point of the negative side of batons or clubs, which is the tremendous amount of work or effort or beatdown that's involved. And I like it in a way. It's a Darkest Before the Dawn card, but it's one of the ones that has retained into the fixed meaning world a lot of the DNA from its earlier sort of fortune telling manifestation.
That's fascinating. It's got a climax of the season premiere feel. The climax battle.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's sort of, I mean, I have, it's weird. It's in the earliest ones. I don't know if you can see if I hold that up. So we've got a Solo Busca. That'll be in shot there. Solo Busca 9. It's some naked guy in a river holding 9 batons. I'm not sure if the meaning was in play that far back, but you certainly do get it once we develop playing cards in Marseille and so on. And there's almost a bit, it is one of the cards that Pamela Coleman Smith did that I think carries that meaning quite well. I don't have a Smith Waite deck to hand, but I do have, which you'll enjoy, the Golden Girls Tarot. And the Nine of Wands in that is it's Sophia, but it's basically Pamela's card, right? So you have someone who's damaged and exhausted standing there with one baton or wand, and there's something very martial arts film about it, because there's the one wand that the card actor is holding, and then there are versus 8, right? So that
right.
It does feel like the insurmountable odds. It feels like the martial arts film where there's the one guy, he's just finished one fight, moves into the next room, and 8 more guys jump down wanting to fight him. And that's the sort of feel that comes through in the Nine of Batons or Nine of Wands.
That's beautiful. I cannot believe how amazing that deck is, by the way. The Golden Girls deck looks incredible.
Yeah. It's totally off brand too, but it's a look into your future from the Lanai. Sold.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I would have definitely bought that one. I wanted to ask, so it's funny, so I've been going through these cards kind of as I come to people and talk to them. It's been a little bit random, and it feels like they're all speaking to right now in a way. I guess that's the nature of the cards, but I'm curious, kind of, are we in that kind of a time period right now that, are we in that kind of
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope we're at 9. It's one of the funny things about fortune telling. Yeah, I hope we're at the 9. There is inspiration in it if we're not there yet, because everyone's exhausted and everything does feel somewhat insurmountable. And I hope we're at a darkest before the dawn moment. We might be at a 5. difficult to see, but there's definitely inspiration in the 9 of batons if we're not there yet.
Awesome. Gordon, this was super useful. What else about the 9 of wands would you think people would want to know if they were looking at it from a cartomancy standpoint, if you were drawing this card or looking at this card for someone else? What's your read on that now?
That's good. So I think, like I said before, I think it's the cleanest way in. And most people who come to cards in the Western world come to it from the Anglo-American approach first of fixed meaning. And then hopefully they go on a bit more of a journey. And it doesn't mean depart from fixed meanings, but realize that emerged out of a longer story. And what I like, because I say batons, you say wands, and that's a really good example of it. What I like about the 9 of wands or batons is it is a really good invitation to actually work out what you think wands/batons are, because it's the suit that I think, which is very appropriate in a way, had the most damage done to it as it moved from a European model into an Anglo-European. It moved elements and it went from a baton as a status symbol to a wand, right? So earlier on, clubs and batons are more to do with air. And because they grow in the air and it's trees and so on. So from the grimoire tradition, you would get your wand, you would cut it from a tree that hadn't touched the ground. It's a symbol of mastery of air element. What happened as we move into the Golden Dawn period is because of their theory of mind, their very clever ability to discern between what is true and what is not because of their elevated spiritual status. They kind of had to allocate air to the sword, which left wand and fire stuck together in a sort of leftover state.
Yeah.
And I know people have learned that meaning and what have you, but the wands or batons in general are the suit that will allow you to situate where you are personally in the kind of story of cartomancy. And the 9 is a really clean one to do that with, because the meaning is, I don't want to say the same, but there's a greater degree of overlap in the 9 of batons and 9 of wands. So it's a rabbit card to, I guess, leveling up your fortune telling in general.
Awesome. Thank you, Gordon. This has been super useful. I can't tell you how much has changed the way that I look at my cards, which is difficult as somebody who wrote a book on tarot, but really wrote a book about biology. But
yeah.
So I get it.
That's one of the things. That's one of the great things, and your deck is a perfect example of it. So Rust Belt's a great example of what a good thing can come from 100 years in a fixed meaning world, because we did get in the last 40 years, it's unfair to call them theme decks. I mean, this is a theme deck, sure. But it allows for, it's a more fixed position that allows for more creative exploration, because tarot is a framework. So one of the good things, it's maybe not as good for fortune telling, at least that's my personal opinion, the fixed meaning system, but it does allow for creative expression and generation of new things. So, and Rust Belt's a great example of it.
That feels like that. Yeah, exactly. I read differently now because of the course, and the Rune Soup, the RSPM course has changed how I read, and it's much more literal and visual. So it's been awesome to look at your own crazy deck, which doesn't, how much agency these things have outside of me has been great too to watch. So that's been,
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Interesting. But awesome, Gordon. Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Very welcome.